another game preview. And what better way to start off the season than to face off against the Cleveland Cavaliers? You know, it's going to be the Knicks and the Cavs going for that 1-2 spot, man. That's what the league believes. That's what the bettors believe. That's what we believe, man. And who better to help preview this game with me? None other than my guy, Ethan Sands. He covers the Cleveland Cavaliers for Cleveland.com. And you can go catch him as the host for the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. Let's get into it. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the show if you haven't already done so. And yo, you already know what it is, man. Make sure to support our sponsor, Manscaped. All right. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to 20% off plus free shipping. All right, man. Let's get into this. Ethan, how you doing today, bro? How you feeling?
Going on, boss man? I appreciate you having me on. Thank you again.
Yeah, man. No problem. No problem. And look, it's it's going to be fun, man, because it's these two teams that are, as I said, projected to be competing for that 1-2 spot in the East. And so before I start asking you all about the Cavs, I gotta ask you, man, what did you think about the Knicks, man? What do you think about their offseason move so far? We could talk about the player construction again. Jordan Clarkson, Gerson Yabusele. What do you think about those moves?
I mean, we got to start here, right? The Knicks offseason wasn't the fireworks show some fans expected after all that Giannis buzz, but it was still calculated, right? Instead of chasing a star, it felt like the Knicks were building on a sturdier foundation. Obviously, the hiring of Mike Brown gives them a new voice with real defensive credibility. And
Mm,
Gershon Yabusele, as you mentioned, is the guy under the radar move that can end up mattering more than people realize. To me, his combination of size, mobility, and willingness to do the dirty work gives New York a body they can throw at stretch bigs, fours, fives, and even, as I mentioned, play the small ball five in different scenarios.
for sure. And that's I like that sign by the Knicks to get Gerson Yabusele. I like came back on the scene as we saw in the Olympics going against Team USA. We already know what he did against Braun, man. If I had the graphics right now, if I had the highlights, I'd be showing it right there. Get teams intimidated. But look, I like the Yabusele move. I also like the Clarkson move, bro, because look, the Knicks last season too, they needed a guy to come off the bench who could be, an initiator, be crafty, could do some facilitating, but more than anything else, just be a bucket getter because outside of Jalen Brunson, no one else could create for themselves. So I like that Jordan Clarkson signing too. What'd you think about that one?
I think that's a different kind of signing, right? It definitely gives more depth behind Jalen Brunson and the starting ball unit when we talk about what the Knicks want to bring. But you might hear me use this a couple of times tonight when we describe Jordan Clarkson. He is a wild card. He can either light it up from deep, he can do what he needs to, or he can go quiet in certain scenarios. But he definitely is a player that, when called upon in different scenarios, can be a bright spot. But it depends on the night.
Yeah, of course. It depends on the night. And look, I don't expect him to be this like crazy 20 per game score, 20 point per game score, I should say. But, you just need to rely somebody off the bench that can be that X factor, that could be that person that like we still have to focus on him because if he gets going, then we could be in trouble, right? So I do like that signing. And Mike Brown, man, you touched on it. We got him. You said that he's a real defensive coach. Interesting that you say that, considering that we saw Sacramento have like one of the worst defenses possible, and after also having Tom Thibodeau, who hangs his hat on defense. Why do you say that? Why do you say he's a real defensive coach?
I just think that's like what he's known for. Sure, you're absolutely right. The Sacramento Kings defense just didn't have the personnel to be able to do that. You also saw the Sacramento Kings become a much better offensive system under Mike Brown with De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, you name it. Obviously, getting all of their acquisitions, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, that helps them, right? But they could not have done that without Mike Brown. And Mike Brown is known more for his defensive edge. Obviously, Tom Thibodeau is as well, but he's a guy that was more so going to lean on the offensive edge of his players like Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, kind of like, hey, take the ball and do what you need to do on the defensive end. We'll figure it out. So I definitely think there's going to be more principles involved on the defensive end when it comes to Mike Brown and just what we've seen, but he'll also try and get them to play pace and space as he's learned from guys like the Golden State Warriors when he was there and all these other places.
Yeah, and even the team that you cover, the Cleveland Cavaliers, man. I mean, he
Yes,
did
sir.
coach LeBron James. So look, I think, you know, it's tough because looking at last season with Tibbs, right? We gave him a team that was so offensive
Yeah.
driven, right? With Brunson, Cat, Bridges, and even from time to time you'd see OG and Josh Hart have some nights as well. And the defense just waned off, but I also know it was a top heavy team. You gave up a lot of the guys that helped do like create that defensive presence. Obviously, not having Mitchell Robinson due to injury last year also impacts that. Losing Isaiah Hartenstein, another key factor into why their defense slipped. So makes sense. But I think to your point, yes, this guy, I think Mike Brown's going to be more creative in the sense of just not hanging his hat on, drop coverage or,
Right.
coming late to the game with doing some switching and just instead of like having drop coverage, just playing at the level and guarding the three. I think Mike Brown's going to implement a few more things or a few more schematics that we haven't really seen for this Knicks team just to compensate for the deficiencies of some of the players like Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. So I'm looking forward to see how that goes. But I guess I got to ask you, man, are you going to say Mike Brown then is a better defensive coach than Tom Thibodeau? And I'm only asking, man, because you threw it out there.
Well, I must say this. I think there's a pedigree to the different levels of defenses that he's had to work with, right? Obviously,
Hmm.
in the Golden State Warriors days, you have guys like or excuse me, like Klay Thompson. You have guys like Andre Iguodala. You have all of these players that you can build around. So now you have these setup pieces when it comes to Mike Brown and OG Anunoby and Josh Hart, and having those personnel pieces, I think he's going to be able to better utilize those guys than what Tom Thibodeau did in recent years. But again, I'm going to give Tom Thibodeau the credit that he deserves. I was surprised when he was let go this summer because of what he did and how
Mm.
far the Knicks got this past season. But I do think that there are going to be some schematic things and principles set in place that he was not able to use that Mike Brown will in this coming year.
Do you think it's fair? And just to get off this question, because I know it's look, man, Knicks Nation's done with hearing the Tom Thibodeau conversation. I mean, look, this guy's he's an op, man. He's going to the Celtics, he's going to the Timberwolves, he's hanging out at coaching practice, he's hanging out at different practices. I mean, come on now. I mean, shout out to my guy Tommy Beer, he tweeted out that look for a guy that's still on payroll, even though he got fired. Like, damn, man, you're going over to the Celtics and you telling them like what you did wrong during like this is crazy work, man. That's wild. So look, I get it. It hurts, man. And sometimes you go do the crazy thing, like go over to an ex and be like, hey, go over to your ex's friend and be like, I'm gonna mess around over there, right? But damn,
Well,
it's craziness.
yeah, it's insane to see how quickly those different changes can happen, right? When we talk about just going and being in different rooms, and especially the part that you mentioned, like telling the opposition or former opposition at this point, like what they did wrong and how to improve their game. Sure, there's just a love of the game balance there too, but I don't know if I expected Tom Thibodeau to be one of those people to show up in Boston of all places and having those different conversations with Jalen Brown, and also just talking to Jason Tatum on the side as well, and what he might know when it comes to Achilles ruptures and all these different things. I just think it was an interesting scenario to see him at practice today, and what he could have brought and what he didn't, or what might happen from that. It's an interesting scenario.
Absolutely an interesting scenario. And look, like I get that he's hitting up all of his old stomping grounds, right? Making sure he's, seeing all of his friends. And look, he did this before after being let go from the Timberwolves and other stops as well. I get that he's a basketball lifer, but just stings, man. Just stings again. I get it though. Like I get it, but damn, it just stings, man. You really on a hop like that, Tibbs. That's crazy. But hey, it is what it is at this point, Ethan. It is what it is. Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning for another game preview. With me on the side is my guy, Ethan Sands. He covers the Cleveland Cavaliers for Cleveland.com. He's also got his own show. Make sure to go check it out. He's the host of the Wine and Gold. Whoa. Sorry, my screen just went crazy. He's also the host of the Wine and Gold show as well. So make sure you go check that out too. Okay. All right. Ethan, let's talk about your Cavs now. All right. So, Cavs coming into this season. Uh, get Lonzo Ball. Disappointing, disappointing performance last year. What do you think, man? What did you think of like how the Cavs season ended last year and what they did this offseason to prepare for this year?
I think everybody in the Cavs organization was a little bit disappointed when it comes to how the season ended in the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Indiana Pacers, right? This was a team that was set up to be able to reach the Eastern Conference finals at minimum. And that was the goal for them last year. But still, Donovan Mitchell has not gotten past the Eastern or Western Conference semifinals in the entirety of his NBA career. That's a benchmark that he still hasn't surpassed. So obviously, this coming into the season, they knew, and they looked back at the Pacers series in particular throughout the entire summer and were like, all right, what do we have to do to get past this kind of team? Because there are going to be so many teams that are going to use this as a blueprint to beat us when it comes to the next season, especially going into the playoffs. So they went and got some players that have this defensive identity, this defensive niche within them. Lonzo Ball, obviously, getting traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro was one of the players that have been here the longest in Cavs organization, but he was not able to produce offensively when it came to the postseason. And they believe that even if Lonzo isn't scoring the basketball, he can impact more on the offensive end than what Isaac Okoro did. Plus, he is a plus defensive player as well. Then you got Larry Nance Jr., who adds to the front court depth alongside Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And then you get Dean Wade in there as well. You got players that you can switch around, and Thomas Bryant is another big piece of that. Who knows how many minutes Thomas Bryant's actually going to get this season? I'm not expecting many, but he's a guy that is helping Evan Mobley and even Jared Allen more specifically in practice guarding on the perimeter. So you're going to see if Jared Allen can hold up in that capacity, because we know Indiana Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton was cooking JA when it came to being on the perimeter and trying to hunt out those switches. But I do think that all of the acquisitions that the Cavs made this offseason were purposeful. And even their signing the number 49 overall pick, Tyrese Proctor, is a guy that's going to help out with the backcourt depth. Even though he's a rookie, I mean, Donovan Mitchell has taken that kid under his wing, and they have not left hips since the beginning of the summer.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
There we go. Sorry, my cat decided to mess. As you see, like for everyone who doesn't know, behind the scenes, I got two cats over here, and they need their treats every time I do the show. It's now a ritual at this point when I sit down at this desk that they come like surround me like sharks. And my cat just stepped on my switchboard over here, so he muted me by accident. So just if you're wondering like why I'm going back and forth like this, these cats are just going to start destroying everything. Funny story before I get back on track. Did a recording once. Cats went underneath my desk, unplugged my computer, my system, so it just shuts off. So I'm like, did I just lose everything? That's the status of like where I'm at with these cats, man. They're just savages at this point. They're absolute savages.
I
But
got I
get
got two outside the crib right now. They're literally, if you hear banging outside my door, that's probably why, because they're trying to get in and get to the treats for sure.
so Ethan, you already get the struggle, man. You already know where I'm
I'm
coming
well
from.
aware. I'm
All
well
right.
aware
Fellow cat dad on the other side. That's what I like to hear, man. I appreciate somebody that could appreciate my struggles over here as well.
for sure.
Uh, but getting back to it, look, you got Lonzo Ball now, right? As you're talking about. And how confident are you that he's going to be able to hold up this season? Because, he missed the last couple of seasons due to a knee injury. He had that Bulls team cooking. He was clearly the straw that was stirring that drink. And now, the way that I look at it, he is going to be a very impactful player, especially when you take Garland off the floor or Mitchell off the floor. You're always going to have at least two playmakers out there. And as you already mentioned, you already know about his defense.
Yeah, I mean, Lonzo Ball is going to be monitored very, very, very heavily by this Cavs organization throughout the regular season, and he is not going to play in back to backs at least to start the year, is what he said. But I don't even
Mm.
know why you would use him in back to backs, because in the playoffs there are no back to backs, right? You always got that in between day off, so there's no training needed for him to be doing that. But the goal for him is to play 50 to 60 games this year. Obviously, as you mentioned, he has not played more than 35 games in a season since 2021. So I think there's so much that we haven't seen yet when it comes to Lonzo, but this is one of the first off seasons, the first summers that he's had where he hasn't had to recover from anything, right? He had the wrist injury last season that had him out for a majority of games last year, but it wasn't the knee injury, right? So he got
Mm.
to rehabilitate that at the end of the season. Now he's back to full form, getting the shots up, and he was in training camp with the Cavs. He was also at their summer mini camps in New York and Los Angeles. We're getting workouts and building that chemistry and camaraderie, and you've already seen it. He's going to likely be the first unit off the bench with Dean Wade as Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen come back to the bench in the first quarter. It's going to be a very interesting way to see how the Cavs utilize him at the beginning of the season. I do not see him playing more than 20 minutes a game to start the year,
Mm.
but that is going to be monitored throughout the season. And if he can ramp that up later into the year, that will prepare him for what the role might get to when it comes to the playoffs.
Hey, and look, you're gonna need him because he's kind of like our Mitchell Robinson, right? Like Mitch was so impactful in the postseason, and man, it really showed the the different levels of defense that we can have when he's out there on the floor. And so I know how impactful Lonzo is. I know he's gotten a lot of heat just for who his father is, but the dude can actually ball out. Dude's actually like a stud. I like his game. I like his game actually more than Lamelo's because I think he's more of a consistent player, more a better, well-rounded player. Um,
It's funny
and
because
just
he plays 2K the same way he plays in real game, right? Like you go watch him play on 2K or look at his stat line afterwards. LaMelo's over here with 30 points on 30 shots. Lonzo got 6 points and 10 assists and 10 rebounds. I'm like, dog, you literally have curated your my player to play who you are. It's funny to watch, but it's also the beautiful game that we talk about with the NBA. Lonzo is one of those players, and that's why we keep talking about like his injury history, right? Because the NBA knows that basketball is better off when Lonzo Ball is on the floor. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen this year for him, especially with the expectations of this team, but also what he had coming into this season. And you got a cat in your camera.
you see, man, I'm telling you, this guy is just a savage, absolute savage. This is my cat Wally, named after Wally West, the Flash, big Flash guy over here. So, uh,
Nice.
but
No regard
yes,
for human life over there, Wally.
none whatsoever. This cat is a complete savage. Um, so next question I got for you is how do you feel about the loss of Ty Jerome? Because he was a big key for you guys during the regular season. Then you lose him. Well, how do you feel about that?
Okay, first and foremost, let's start here because the news just came out today, right? Ty Jerome is going to be out to start the season, 4 weeks, reevaluated after I believe it's a right calf strain that he suffered in the preseason finale for the Memphis Grizzlies. So that sucks to see that, right? Because you wanted to see Ty go over the Memphis, get his ball on, and understand what he is capable of, and especially with the amount of injuries that they were having, he was going to have a bigger role, right? And that was the point of him not coming back to Cleveland and signing a little bit less than what maybe he would have gotten elsewhere. The opportunity was going to be there for him to go and ball out in Memphis. Now you don't get that opportunity because by the time you get back, likely most players are going to be back healthy. But back to your question. The Cavs are going to be, it's going to be interesting. That second unit was ran by Ty Jerome last year. He was the catalyst for a lot of that offense, and it was sporadic offense. There was a time where Kenny Atkinson was just like, sometimes I just back up and give him the ball and let him do what he needs to do because the offense isn't flowing and all these different things. Now you look at Lonzo Ball kind of coming into that role. That's kind of the point of why the Cavs felt like they could get a 2-for-1 deal here, right? You let Ty
Mm-hmm.
Jerome walk, you get a trade for Lonzo Ball, you lose Isaac Okoro. Hey, Lonzo can do both of what Ty Jerome was doing and what Isaac Okoro was doing defensively. But we obviously understand that the points creation is going to be a little bit different. So the Cavs are counteracting that by one, if he's available for the season opener, DeAndre Hunter staying in the game and being a catalyst for that second unit while being in the starting unit. Also, Evan Mobley staying in that second unit as well to help out and not allow the Cavs to get stagnant in their offensive production. So that second unit could look like something like Lonzo Ball, Sam Merrill, DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade, and Evan Mobley, right? And that's an offense and defensive setup that allows them to move with pace and space while also creating shots in transition. So you don't necessarily want to get into the half court when it comes to this setup, especially when you don't have a player like Ty Jerome. But if you do, plays like plays that break down, DeAndre Hunter has the skill set. Evan Mobley has the skill set to go get a bucket, just elevate and initiate and all these different good things for the Cavs, even if Ty Jerome isn't going to be around.
Okay. Okay. So there's still some hope and still some optimism with that second unit that he could still get some stuff done. And look, I mean, you got the star power, you got you got the starting five, you got enough. There should be enough there. And so with that, that's kind of been like, I guess, the disappointing factor with the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? It's like you have like a legitimate starting five, Evan Mobley, who's been touted as, like we saw last year, guy. What was it? Did he win Defensive Player of the Year last year?
Yes,
He
sir.
did, right?
Yep.
So I just want to make sure it was in Triple J. I forget which. I was mixing my 2 years in my head, but one Defensive Player of the Year last year. Took a big step forward in that direction, and we knew he was going to be a defensive guy. Offensively, he started to come around a bit last year, and now with was it year three with Donovan Mitchell? Is this year three?
This is year 4.
Year four. Wow, time's moving by fast. So with year four for Donovan Mitchell, you know, essentially is like, what's going to happen next? You guys have been making it to the second round and then kind of flaming out from there. And yet, after a season like last year, where you guys were dominant during the regular season, guys fizzled out after a magical Pacers run. Is the pressure there this year for them to finally get to the ECF or even further than that? Just because you made these moves, you went and got Donovan Mitchell after he was linked to the Knicks. You know, you got Evan Mobley, a touted like top draft pick. You have all these players now. Like, is that the expectation for this year?
Oh, they feel that pressure. They feel the pressure.
Mm,
Everyone in that locker room knows the window is now, right? And they always are going to say, pressure is privilege, right? Privilege pressure. You don't get to these scenarios without having the expectations put on you from the success that you've curated, right? You've got Donovan Mitchell entering a pivotal contract stretch, right? He's got 2 years left until he's now in his 10th year of accrued service, and could be an extension, could be on his player option. Who knows what he's going to do? Darius Garland coming back from a toe surgery this offseason, trying to reassert himself after a turbulent year, and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen proving they can coexist in modern NBA offense. I mean, if this team doesn't at least make the NBA Finals, there will be tough
mm.
decisions on the horizon. But that's what makes this season compelling, right? Obviously, we know the regular season doesn't necessarily matter for this team, but the stakes are real. There's a difference between pressure and expectation. Pressure breaks you, expectation tests you. The Cavs are trying to prove they can handle expectation. If Cleveland doesn't break through this year, it won't be about talent, it'll be about timing.
Mm. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Ethan breaking it down for you, saying the time is now for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they got a lot riding on this season, so it will be interesting. And hey, what better way than to test it off against the New York Knicks on Wednesday night, October 22nd? So it'll be fun from right there. So with the Knicks Nation, thank you all for tuning for another game preview. With me on the other side is my guy, Ethan Sands. He covers the Cleveland Cavaliers for Cleveland.com and is the host for the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. I got it right this time, man. Cat's throwing me all off everywhere, but I got it right this time, man. Got to give you the respect, of course. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, okay? And hey, remember, it's time to support our sponsor, Manscaped. And people, let me tell you something about Manscaped. It's time to talk about stepping up your grooming game. The face shaving products from Manscaped are the ultimate grooming tools designed to deliver precision and comfort in sleek and easy to use devices. Whether you're looking for a trim, a shape, or a detailed touch up, Manscaped face shaving products are built to handle shaving your face with ease. Crafted for efficiency and the perfect addition to your grooming arsenal. You can use the promo code KFTV to get 50% off your entire order at manscaped.com. Okay? And look, there's so many different technologies out there, but the one that we're talking about today is the Handyman. I got the Handyman myself, and look, it is easy to use when it comes to grooming your face. You got so many different levels. You don't got to change blades at all. All you got to do is just turn the dial, and it'll go up and down. So it makes it easy when it comes to trimming your beard, man. Come on, you don't want to lose all your clips. Sometimes, especially if you're like me, you got a kid that going through all your stuff. Next thing you know, you're gonna be missing like some clips, and you're like, wait a minute, I can't get to level 2, I can't get to level 4. What's happening over here? And just like that, it's just as easy to use the handyman because hey, it's one clip and it's so adjustable with the turn of the dial. So make sure to support our sponsor, Manscaped. Join the over 12 million men who trusted Manscaped and upgraded to the Handyman Rocket Man. You can use my code KFTV to get 50% off your entire order at manscaped.com. That's 15% off plus free shipping with the code KFTV at manscaped.com. Don't miss out. Upgrade your grooming game with Manscaped today. All right, people. So make sure to go support our Manscaped. And we made it through a non-flagrant Manscaped ad read. Look at that. That was pretty tame. That was pretty tame. You know, in the past, they like to really jingle the thing up over here. So thank goodness for that. All right. Well, let's keep this show moving. All right, Ethan. So we already discussed some of the storylines. Let's get into the actual game for Wednesday night. I mean, Wednesday night. So let's get into some of these game materials. All right. And looking at some of the key stats over here, you know, it's tough because it's preseason. All the teams aren't really going all out. I mean, the Knicks aren't even going all out. We haven't had Josh Hart. Mitch has been resting. You know, there's some question if those guys are even going to be available for Wednesday night. So I don't know if this is gamesmanship by Mike Brown, but we got to take it at face value that these two guys might not be available. But looking from the Cavs side, this is a team that led last year when it came to scoring during the regular season. They were a top 3-point shooting team, and they were also good at controlling the glass. Now, last year, the Knicks, you know, offensively, they started out gangbusters. Then it started to slow down. We relied heavily on Jalen Brunson. Rebounding wasn't as strong. If this team is fully healthy for Wednesday night, I expect them to compete on the glass with the Cavs, and I'm expecting them to compete offensively too, even though it's been a short amount of time with Mike Brown. What do you expect between these two teams since, you know, new players, slight tweaking, I feel like, for the Cavs, but a massive overhaul for the Knicks? How do you expect these two teams are going to collide this Wednesday night?
I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier, right? When it comes to the whole new era of Mike Brown, right? It feels like obviously this is year 2 of Kenny Atkinson in Cleveland, but it's a clash of philosophies. The Knicks want to grind you down, the Cavs want to speed you up. Mike Brown will still emphasize physicality, of course, that's what the Knicks are known for. But Cleveland's offense, as you stated from last season, is designed to test the conditioning and defensive discipline that the Knicks are trying to build. Obviously, it's going to be game 1 of the 82 game season. Nobody's going to look perfect. Some people are going to be gassed by the fourth quarter. Some players might not even play in the fourth quarter, depending on how the score is looking. But under Kenny Atkinson, whoever gets the rebound becomes the initiator for this Cavs offense. That's a nightmare to guard in hindsight because it eliminates predictability. No more waiting for, in this case, Donovan Mitchell to walk the ball up. The Knicks are a top tier rebounding and rim protecting team, as you mentioned, especially in the beginning of last season. But their biggest weakness has been lateral speed and transition coverage. The Cavs, again, as I mentioned, are built to exploit that by pushing pace and creating early clock mismatch. The Knicks will test Cleveland's toughness. The Cavs will test New York's lungs. This is a game of like of who will have the strongest will in game 1. It is so hard to predict who's going to be available because both teams are playing these mind games. Will DeAndre Hunter play? Will Mitchell Robinson play? We'll obviously get into their significance in this show a little bit later, but I do think that whoever is going to be available is going to have to come out and play top notch from the game 1. And that's exactly why the NBA schedule planners did it like this. This is going to be the expectation for the entire season. Plus, this is a preview of the Christmas Day game, guys. I don't think we can sleep on that at all. I think this is a huge game to start the season. The Cavs are on the road for the first 2 games, obviously playing Brooklyn later that week as well. I just think this is a huge game, and there's so many different factors. And as I mentioned before, the philosophy clash feels like something that could be a beautiful postseason preview as well because of how these two teams are so different and how they kind of go head to head.
The storylines are endless for this matchup. And what's even crazier is that, Yes, this will be the first matchup between these two teams to start off the season. As you mentioned, look, I can already see the Adam Silver meme on the phone right outside in that pea coat. Be like, yo, we need this happening right now, man. We don't got any Jason Tatum for the Celtics. Jalen Brown tweaked his hammy. Okay, we got no Tyrese Halliburton. Hey, we need Knicks Cavs to start this thing off. So it's a good way to start the game. But here's the big thing too, Ethan, is that these teams, yes, it'll be game one. So I expect, as you mentioned, some sloppiness from a play perspective. Look, Knicks are not even going to be fully integrated into the Mike Brown system. Lonzo Ball, even though Kenny Atkinson is a whiz with guards, I'm not expecting him to be fully ready to be at peak form to hang with these guys. And look, not even all these guys. This is gonna be first game. This is gonna be game one, man, where they're gonna be playing, their heavy minutes, getting back into the physicality, the trials and tribulations of an 82 game regular season. But back to my point, it is game one. The next time they play is Christmas. There's no they don't. So this team both these teams will have a long runway to get back into rhythm by December 25th. When depending on if you're a diehard NBA fan, you're watching now. If you're the casual, football season still going on, right? I don't know if you cover the Browns or not. I'm a Jets fan, so we've already threw that thing into the the waste bin. I'm not even paying attention to that right now. But look, if you're waiting till Christmas Day, that's when these two teams should be at their peaks at 12 p.m. So it's the first game on Christmas Day too. So there's a lot riding right now on this because whoever wins this one, best believe they're going to come back with some tweaks, adjustments, whatever you want to call it, and with some, with more to prove, right? Because I always feel like if you win game one of the regular season in a matchup, it's like more so like talent. I feel like is winning that one. Now it's going to be scheme and talent, right?
Right.
So it's going to be a good one, man. I'm looking forward to this one.
I mean, it's going to be a great game. I think you mentioned it there. Like, there's so much that can change. Like, we just talked about the injuries that are already happening before the season has even begun. Who knows who's going to be available for the Christmas Day game? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you want everybody to be able to play. Everybody dreams. If you're a player that dreams of playing in the NBA that gets the opportunity to do that, your next dream, obviously Christmas Day, then the next dream, making it to the NBA Finals, the next dream, winning a championship, making an All-Star, all these different things. But playing on Christmas Day is in the long list of what players want to do. So everybody is going to do everything they can to play in this game. But that could change the mentality of who or what the schematic adjustments are going to be. Because, like we've talked about it, Mitchell Robinson isn't going to play in game one. That is a completely different game plan than if he plays on Christmas Day, right? Josh
Absolutely.
Josh Hart's the same way. Josh Hart is a menace when he comes to playing against the Cavs. He's always on the boards. Another guy that the Cavs have to keep their eye on if he plays, but that's still to be determined.
Yeah, and look, from a Knicks perspective, if we don't have Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson, those are our best rebounders right there. The Cavs are going to be running to the races when it comes to cleaning the glass. So it's going to need the Knicks are going to need to be on point when it comes to making their shots. So very hopeful that these guys play. We still got another day in between, and even the morning of that day, hopefully these guys can play. I'd like to see these two teams just like close to being at maximum to start off the regular season. Um, Look, so the playing styles are going to be different for the Knicks, especially. It's just going to be different,
I
and they're
mean,
going to be just
let's start here, right? Two
sure,
two players we know aren't playing in the first game of the season. Darius Garland and Max Strus. They're not going to be there, right?
yeah.
They might be in New York, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to be on the floor. Darius Garland, as I mentioned earlier, is coming back from a toe surgery. Max Strus is like a late foot surgery into the summer, so he might not even be back till the All-Star break. So he might miss both of the matchups against the Knicks.
This is very
So
true.
there's a completely different dynamic of what the teams will face when it comes to game one and then again on Christmas Day.
This is very true. And this is kind of reminiscent of that time where Randall, tweaked his ankle. He wasn't available for that game. I think both teams were not fully healthy, but we just got a, fireworks show from Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson put up like it's got to be over like 35, 40 points, something along those lines. It was just absurd, like just shot for shot making. It was just absolute insanity. Maybe we get that tomorrow. Who knows? Since we or maybe who knows? Who knows what we'll get on Wednesday night? Hopefully we get something. It's going to be good. That's all I know. But speaking about that game and speaking about those two players, that's my key matchup for this game. It's going to be Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, and for as much as the stench of like, oh, the Knicks missed out on getting Donovan Mitchell, this, that, and the third. Um, Look, even if we're past that point, there is still the point of there's a little bit of a David and Goliath thing going on around here, which is Jalen Brunson's been owning Donovan Mitchell in the postseason, and it's like, all right, for Donovan, it's like you look at the other side, like, yo, this guy has been getting the best of me. He beat me when I was in Utah and he was on Dallas. Our first year on two different teams. He beats me again in first round of the playoffs where we were expected, to have the better roster, the better starting five. We lost to that one. And now this time around again, where both these teams have two runways to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Here we are again, game one, and I'm expecting Donovan and Brunson to see some blood in the water in this matchup. And that's what I'm saying. It should be a good one. How do you feel about this key matchup for the game?
I think you're exactly right. I think Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson are two of the head of the snakes for each organization. And Donovan knows what is at stake, as I mentioned earlier in the show, of what hangs in the balance this year for this team. And Kenny Atkinson has talked about, Kobe Altman said before we even got to training camp that Donovan Mitchell was in mid-season form. Like, we are talking about you have been working your tail off during the summer to be ready for the season because there's different intensity behind what is coming this year and the expectations for the Cavs. But this matchup in particular, Donovan and Jalen Brunson, we know Donovan always shows up a little bit more when it comes to playing at Madison Square Garden. He's a New Yorker. That's where he came from. That's what he wants to be embellished by. Like, that's what he wants to represent, right? But when it comes to this matchup, they're kind of mirroring each other, right? Craft, pace, shot creation, leadership. But this matchup goes deeper. The question isn't just who wins those minutes when they're both on the floor. It's what happens when Donovan Mitchell steps off the court. That's where Cleveland was struggled in the past because Jalen Brunson in past matchups has played more minutes than Donovan Mitchell has, especially in the Kenny Atkinson era. This year, the Cavs are hoping Evan Mobley fills that gap. As I mentioned earlier, he's going to be also the crux in that second unit, trying to hold it up and be an offensive hub. He's been challenged to operate as a facilitator in short roll situations, to punish switches, and to be more decisive facing up. If Evan Mobley can consistently draw help and make the right reads, he unlocks a version of this offense that's been missing. I mean, Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson will trade buckets, obviously, but Evan Mobley's growth might decide who wins.
Yeah, and I think that's very well said. And to me, like you talk about who's coming off the bench, that being Evan Mobley to subsidize a scoring punch while Mitchell's on the bench. Uh, I'm looking at it from a perspective of with Mike Brown, and trying to figure out how do you use Jalen Brunson, right? He wants to move away from this Tibbs ideology. All right, your best player, Jalen Brunson, just get him the rock. That was the playbook. You know how like you just get the whiteboard. Yeah, sometimes there were some like out of timeout plays. It just says get Brunson the ball. It's like hey Arnold, give Tucker the ball. It was like that. Give Brunson the ball. That was the game plan. You see
Right.
somebody else shoot. What are you doing, man? Get Brunson the ball. So I'm curious to see how it goes away from that. And look, there's a lot of mouths to feed on this Knicks team. There's Mikal Bridges. There's Carl Anthony Towns, your two top guys offensively. Not necessarily in that order. It would be Cat and Bridges, in the right order for offense. And then it goes OG Anunoby. Josh Hart when he's out there, he can certainly get his. Jordan Clarkson's another guy. There's a lot of guys that need to eat offensively because that's just what they do. And even when you think about OG Anunoby, who left or well, he got traded from the Raptors, right, to come to New York. But during that whole in between becoming a free agent, he wanted a bigger offensive role. That's been stated, and so he was expecting that when he came here, and he still wants that. Like he still believes that there's a lot more, and you could see that frustration last year under the coaching of Tom Thibodeau. So there's a lot of guys that need to get their touches in and score, and so I'm curious to see how Mike Brown facilitates that, or does he rip off the band-aid and say, hey, you know what? Let's just for this one, because we're still implementing a new system, let's go to our guy. It is game one. He should be fresh. Brunson looks lean. He looks trim. You can see it looks like he has some good conditioning to play at the pace that Mike Brown wants, but very curious because I think while I can see Donovan Mitchell doing that, I think with the course of an 82 game regular season, if you're trying to go different, which is the whole premise of what the Knicks wanted and why they got rid of Tibbs, you might not want to do that game one. You might want him to be working on the new principles that you hired him to do. So that's going to be my biggest thing that I'm watching out for on Wednesday's game.
So can we let's step back into the Mike Brown box just for a second, right? We
All
we
right.
talked a lot about him when we got into the Mike Brown versus Tom Thibodeau discussion, but I just think he's a stabilizer and a modernizer, right? He is going to be able to adapt to whatever the situation calls for because he's seen every side of this league from LeBron's early Cleveland years to the Warriors dynasty, and he's evolved with it. What stands out about Mike Brown is that what he's learned is how to connect with stars and role players, right? Because we know that there's a difference when it comes to this league and how some coaches, I'm not naming names, lean more into star players than role players, and that can lead to frustrations in the locker room. He's not going to burn out this roster, in my opinion, especially in the beginning of the season. He'll still demand accountability. That's what he's known for. But his message tends to last longer because it's not rooted in fear. It's rooted in purpose, responsibility, accountability again. And like the culture that Tibbs created is going to stay. You cannot take that away. You cannot take away what the Knicks accomplished last year. Mike Brown's job, role, what they brought him to do is to sustain that and elevate it. This hire for Mike Brown is about longevity, not shock value, right? Because they want to get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. They want to get to the NBA Finals. They think that Mike Brown's the guy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the same thing with Kenny Atkinson. So both these teams are right, like are in like interesting positions, man, because there's a lot. I know for Cavs, like this is like as you talked about the year for the Knicks. It's like, okay, can we do it again with the new coach, and can we do it in a different way where it doesn't look like it's a slugfest throughout the
Yes.
entire postseason? So that, hey, you're preaching, man. You're preaching over there. So it'll be interesting, man. This is why I'm excited, man. I'm so happy the NBA is back. I'm so happy that the NBA is back and we get to talk about this. All right, let's wrap this thing up and let's talk about our X factors, man. Who, since you're the guest, who's your X factor for tomorrow's game? I got two ideas, but I'm gonna let you rock first.
I mean, I'm gonna cheat, right? I got two. I got two as well. I got two.
Mm.
So if Mitchell Robinson suits up, he's the X factor. Point blank. Period.
I'm
Right.
talking about for the Cavs. No, I'm talking about for the Cavs. I'm talking about who's your
Oh,
Cavs X
okay, okay,
factor. Yeah,
okay. My bad. Well, I
all
got
good.
excited there too. We got onto the next topic. I want to hop on the train. So, Cleveland Cavaliers X factor for tomorrow or for Wednesday's game. Uh, I I mean, you talk about it, it's Evan Mobley, right? It's how
Mm.
he has grown throughout the offseason, what his offensive production is going to be. Can you bang with a guy like Mike Mitchell Robinson? Can you bang with a guy like Carl Anthony Towns? Are you strong enough to hold up as the true starting five or true five in these situations where you know the name of the game is rebounding in this scenario, especially if Mitchell Robinson suits up? So I do think he's the biggest X factor when it comes to the starting unit and the second unit. But you also talk about guys like Dean Wade and Jalen Tyson. Like if DeAndre Hunter can't play in Wednesday's game, I would not be surprised if one of these two players has to jump into the starting lineup. Dean Wade obviously being the versatile size and being able to help out on the boards, Jalen Tyson being more of an offensive creator. Those are the two guys that I feel like are on the cusp of being the X factor for Wednesday's game, depending on who is available for the Cleveland Cavaliers come game one of this 2025-2026 season.
Okay, so those are your X factors. Now you start off with one of my guys, and I appreciate that. Mitchell Robinson is, one of my X factors, and it is because of how he defends, how he protects the paint, rebounding, his ability to play cover the pick and roll. He is that type of guy, and if you're gonna have a team like Cleveland and have a coach like Kenny Atkinson who relies heavily on guard play, you want a center like Mitchell Robinson who's capable of switching. I mean, look, I know Jalen Brown was out there talking about how did the Knicks beat us? And da, da, da. Just throw up the clip of Mitchell Robinson, rotating on all five players and then guarding you and getting the rock from you too. That's how we did it. All right, that's one of the reasons and how we did it. So Mitch is one of my X factors, and as to your point, does he play? My other X factor, who is more likely to play, is Jordan Clarkson, because when it comes to scoring, I know everyone, and there's been a whole lot of discussion amongst the Knicks fan base, especially with the show I just did for the last preseason game, like who should be the sixth man. I'm saying it should be Josh Hart. Some are saying, hey, Jordan Clarkson is supposed to be should be that guy. Deuce McBride should be that guy as well. But I'm looking at who is going to subsidize that scoring as a creator when Brunson's off the court, as you're talking about for who will do it when Mitchell is off the court. And I'm looking at Jordan Clarkson. I'm looking for him to be that guy. Not saying that Deuce can't have a big game, not saying that Mikal Bridges can't have a big game. But I put Mikal Bridges in this season. It's much different than last year. He was mostly my X factor for last year just because new to the team, up and down season. I'm expecting him to be more consistent this year. So X factors to me kind of like go up and down. They come in and out of nowhere. Um, it's Jordan Clarkson, man, and I'm going to lean with him just because I don't know the status of Mitch for Wednesday's game, but it is Clarkson just because, as I said, if Brunson's going to sit, who's going to be that guy that goes in there and provides that scoring, provides some of that playmaking, which he is than more than capable of doing. Granted, he'll probably give us more heart attacks than anything else because this is a guy who loves to chuck and will put up some highly contested shots, highly impossible shots, and you're like, how did he do that? After you're drenched in sweat and it's only like 3 minutes, into the second quarter. And look, that's the guy who is going to be my X factor for tomorrow's game. So, you know, you're talking about Evan Mobley. I'm talking about Jordan Clarkson. So hey, there we go. It's all about who's going to be able to score. And this is the thing. Both these teams are going to be heavy offensive heavy teams. So that's what makes it more intriguing.
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. And if I had to use two words to describe Jordan Clarkson for the season, it's going to be chaos engine. he's he's a guy that, as you mentioned, can change the game in three straight possessions. And let me be clear, that could be better or worse. And obviously, I do think the Cavs, as you mentioned, are going to be still a good offensive team. They had a historic offensive rating last season. But the reality is, this start of the year, without Darius, without Max, they're more interchangeable when it comes to their lineups. They could potentially be better off for this. And obviously, you understand that their defensive identity is something that they're going to have to lean on to minimize mistakes and maximize opportunities to then create in transition, which is what they want to do and what they worked on so heavily in training camp and in the summer is getting to their spots, getting up shots before the shot clock even hits 20, and then coming in and getting offensive boards and all those different things. I think this team is trying to be as the best, has the best chance to get back to the NBA Finals than anybody else, than any Cavs team since LeBron. One, and two, the other part of that is it's because they have the most depth, the best roster than the Cavs have had since LeBron has been here.
Yeah, and look, on that note, and before I let you go, Ethan, and you said it, this is the best roster, right? And the most capable roster to get to the ECF, potentially the NBA Finals. Where do you see this team finishing in the standings this year? Because it is supposed to be the Knicks and the Cavs, unless you want to go look at Kevin Pelton's, AI generated article, and the Orlando Magic just decided to come out of nowhere and be this dominant team that goes to the NBA Finals and loses to the Golden State Warriors. So outside of that,
Well,
where do you
hold on.
think the Knicks and the
Let's be real, man. Let's be real. The Orlando Magic are going to be decent this
Oh,
year.
they're going to be good. I'm not knocking it on that. I'm not knocking on that. I expect them to be a good team. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if in the top six based on the roster that they have.
Right.
Do I think that they're going to win that to be like on the brink of a 60-win team and go to the NBA Finals and no. In year one, look, man, you got to get your scars. They need to get more playoff experience in the postseason. I don't expect that. That AR article was crazy. So, but back to the topic at hand, man. Where do you see the Cavs and the Knicks? Who do you got?
I got the
Position one,
Cavs as
two.
the one seed. I got the Cavs retaining the one seed as they did last year. Their roster continuity, the depth, and the pace fit the regular season grind. And obviously, they have and just emphasis on the depth, right? Because we talked about players not being available. And then it's basically like at the trade deadline. Oh, we don't have to make any moves because guess who's coming back? Max Strus. Guess who's healthy? Darius Garland. Guess who's going to be ramping up and getting ready for the playoffs? Lonzo Ball. So all these players that are going to be already on this roster are going to be even more comfortable and capable later into the season if they remain healthy. But when it comes to the Knicks, I, I'm a little skeptical, man. I know that the Knicks are going to be real good this year, right? And I think they are a true threat to the Cleveland Cavaliers of making it to the Eastern Conference Finals or to the NBA Finals. But because of the load management that they're doing before Game 1, I cannot say confidently that I can see them being number 2, like with certain. They're built for sustainability right now, which means that they may sacrifice seeding for long-term health. That talks about the Mitchell Robinson question that we've been kind of circling all day. Like when Mike Brown was talking today about whether or not there was an injury for Mitchell Robinson, he kept saying no to that question. It was just about load management. I don't know about you. I don't know a lot of players that are load managing in Game 1 of the regular season, not getting ready to go. So I think that they're going to be extremely cautious. Do I think that they're going to be in the top 4 of the Eastern Conference? Yes. That's where I have them slated. They can be between 2 and 4. And unless the Detroit Pistons come out swinging, doing some crazy stuff, that they're not going to fall down to 5. So I got them between 2 and 4 this season, just because of what they might do for their long-term plan, especially heading into the playoffs.
Now, I would. I know some are gonna say, Alex, you should say that we're gonna be number one, da 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 da. And I would like to see. I would like to see that. I'd love to see the Knicks to be the number one team in the East. I'd love to see that just for like, you know, I think for confidence going into the postseason. But the way that this team has been talking, the way that they want to move away from Tibbs, who you look, Tibbs is all about winning the regular season. That man was gung ho on getting that number one seed. The way that they've been talking and managing players, and as you mentioned with Mitchell Robinson and load managing, even for game 1, it's hard for me to believe that they're going to really gun for the first seed. And with that, I'm in agreement. I think they will be 2. I think the lowest they will go is 3, but I think they will go for 2 just because they want home court advantage on the other bracket. How important home court is at this like time for the NBA is, I don't think it really matters much. We're seeing what the
I mean,
Pacers
you
did.
saw
They
with the
did.
Cavs last year, it didn't matter. It
Yeah,
didn't matter with the Cavs
Cavs
last
had the
year.
number one seed, and then you see what the Pacers did, and so I don't think home court advantage really matters. So with that and thinking that, I think they're really worried about the long game, which is let's make sure everyone's healthy for the postseason. That's where it matters the most. So 2 to 4, I don't disagree, but I think it's gonna be more so 2 to 3 with the Knicks, just because of how they've been messaging everything. And look, you even look at what Josh Hart's going through right now, and Mitch. I know if it was Tibbs, they okay to run? He'd be pressing. Are they okay to run? Are they okay to play? They can't play 40 minutes. Can they play 35? Cool. We're going to do 35 minutes. Not a problem.
That's funny, but it's also the reality of the situation. And the only reason I'm saying 2 to 4 is because I'm very high on Orlando and Atlanta this
Mm.
season. I think that those are 2 of the 3 teams that I think could pose the biggest challenge to the Cavs when it comes to Eastern Conference Final, NBA Finals, are those 3 teams: Orlando, Atlanta, and then of course New York. Because Orlando just has the physicality and length, and then they went and got Desmond Bain, who fit exactly what they were missing. And in Atlanta, you're starting a lineup that has like only one player under 6'8". They're super long. They're super athletic. They have the defensive capability. And then Trae Young, I know everybody loves to hate Trae Young, but he's a guy that can create offense out of thin air. So whether that's scoring, whether that's passing, which he's led the league in for the last couple of years, I definitely think those are the teams that I think are going to be the biggest threats, both to the Cavs and the Knicks, especially when we talk about the longevity of these teams and the depth of their rosters and their second units. Atlanta's second unit is going to be crazy, talking about Nickeil Alexander-Walker coming off the bench. Kristaps Porzingis, obviously, whatever role he's going to be, Onyeka Okongwu, and all these guys. I think it's going to be super interesting to see how the start of the season comes out, and then especially when the trade deadline hits, what moves are made, and then how people get back into the second half, quote unquote, of the season.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with you on the Magic. I think the Magic, They got really hit with the injury bug last year. Typically, that doesn't really happen like back-to-back years. I'd like to do some more research on that, but sometimes there's years where you just have like your entire team has like injury, just like riddled seasons. You're like, why us? Why this season? Like that happened with the Knicks with Randall, Mitch, and all those guys, and then we lose. We trade Randall to get Cat the following season. Then last year, the Knicks were the most healthiest team possible. So I feel like that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles at that point. So I can see Orlando after everything. My biggest thing with them is Paolo and Franz. More so, Franz, is he ready to take that next step with Atlanta? Can Trey be efficient? Because he could do everything that you're saying, but it's more so efficiency with him. And it's all, can KP bounce back from that illness that he had last year that we still have no idea what it is that he had last year. But if he's out there, stretching the floor, that team is very, as you mentioned, versatile and long. And so we'll
I mean,
see, man.
and
The NBA is going to be very cool this year. NBA is going to
it's
be
going to
very
be
cool.
so much fun. And they're adding back Jalen Johnson, who was out for a majority of
Yes.
last year, too.
I like
So,
Jalen Johnson a lot. I like his game
yeah.
so much that I drafted him again in my fantasy and basketball league. I drafted him last year. I was killing it. Then I lost him. So I drafted him again, man. Hopefully, Lightning is hit twice in the same spot with injuries. We'll see though. Ethan, my man, appreciate you for coming through on the show. Please let the listeners know where they can find you. If you got any work up and coming, we should be on the lookout for.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Alex, first and foremost. Thank you again. But you can find me, as we mentioned, at cleveland.com/Cavs. That's where all of my work is going to be published. I'm coming out with the feature article in the next couple of days on Lonzo Ball, kind of introducing the Cleveland folks to Lonzo, and I have exclusive interviews with different people, all of that. But obviously, also the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. I'm the host of that. And on socials at EJ Elite One. Follow me. You can get all my social media content and all of the Cavs and NBA news that you'll need for this entire NBA season.
There you have it. Appreciate you once again, Ethan, for coming through. And make sure to give Ethan a follow. He does phenomenal work. So make sure to go check out his stuff. I know Knicks Nation, we're all heavy into the Knicks, but I also know that we're all NBA fans as well. We like to keep up and keep tabs of what's going around the league, as we should. That's how you become, I feel like, a better NBA fan and more knowledgeable about the team and what's going on around you in the NBA, in the league in general. The league, as Adam Silver likes to say. So, hey, make sure to go give Ethan a follow. He does a phenomenal job, like I said. And I appreciate all of you for tuning for another game preview. All right. The New York Knicks host the Cleveland Cavaliers on Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. All right. So make sure to be tapped in on there. And hey, remember, we got the watch party happening as well on Wednesday. So make sure to go. First of all, if you haven't done so already, make sure to sign up for the newsletter because it'll tell you where it is. All right. So make sure to go follow and find out where the watch party is. All right. And make sure to go be there to go join the Orange and Blue faithful as we cheer on New York Knicks in game 1 of the NBA season. Also, make sure to support our sponsor, Manscaped. All right. Make sure to use that promo code KFTV to get to 15% off plus free shipping on the handyman and all Manscaped products. Make sure to do that. And last and surely but not least, make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. All right, everybody. Appreciate you all for tuning for another game of the week preview. We'll catch you later. We out.